Hi, I'm Tamitha Scove with your solar storm forecast for the week of July 21st. Now we'll start this forecast by reminding you how important it is to pay attention to space weather. This happened a month ago yesterday, and it's a woman and her 2 children who barely escaped with their lives when their GPS unit actually steered them onto the tracks right in front of an oncoming train. Now the kids and the mother escaped fine, but it's a really good example as to how space weather can affect you in your daily life, even when the storms are mild. Now this happened just before 9 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, so I went back to look at the sun to see if I saw any anomalous event, and sure enough there was a small C-class flare that occurred just before 9, right when they said that she had her problem. Now this minor flare in of itself may not have been enough, but when you couple that with the fact that sunset was at 8:30, about 20 minutes before her GPS failed, and that the terminator between day and night is so unstable anyway to these signals and propagating signals down to us on the ground, then you actually have a smoking gun for this being space weather related. Now the thing is that this was a C-class flare, just the same as this one you see right here, which we had on the 19th, just a couple days ago. So you don't have to go to an M flare threat level in order to have these disruptions, and that's what we have now. So all the naysayers who are saying that the sun is quieting down, that we don't need to worry about space weather, I beg to differ. And speaking of activity, what has the sun been doing this past week? Well, because you can see it has been flare quiet, but look around the rim of the sun. Look at all of the material that's lifting off in different ways. We had 2 of them, for example. This was a 1-2 punch just off the east limb from a region that's just beginning to rotate into our field of view. And you got huge ejections. You can see that huge ejection lifting off there. And as simultaneously with that, you can see a little ejection right there. Here's a close-up view of it. This actually is showing the region 17, 85, and 87 from last week that was so quiet. It finally blew off a big CME. None of this stuff happens to be Earth-directed right now, but if it had been, these would have been solar storms that would have created big geomagnetic disturbances and would have caused problems with our Wi-Fi and our GPS and our cell phones. So what does the sun have in store for us this week? Well, if we look at the map of all of the active regions on the sun, remember the east and west limb are bracketed. They bracket the Earth field of view. You look to the left, this is the far side. These are the sunspots that are going to be rotating into the Earth field of view very soon. There's spot 1800. You can see it's actually quite large. And as you can see, the disk is absolutely littered with active regions at this time. Most of them are stable. There's 1800 rotating around. When we zoom in on 1793, it has the most complexity, and it right now is the one that sent us that C-class flare from just the other day. So you remember that coronal hole from a few days ago? Well, it has passed us. It did give us some high-speed solar wind, as you see here, and a bit of a geomagnetic disturbance along with that, which meant our Earth shield was a bit rattled, but the KP index only got up to about 4, which means the conditions were unsettled. We had aurora at high latitudes and communications disturbances there, but nothing made it down into mid-latitudes, so we're pretty much in the clear. And those of you who want to see aurora will have to wait for the next storm, but that may not take that long, because if you go back to the sun, you can see another coronal hole. This time it's more equatorial, meaning it's more near the equator of the sun. And that's going to be rotating around into what we call a geo-effective position, or an Earth-directed position, in the next couple days. So in terms of space weather for the rest of this week, expect low to moderate flare activity. So most likely we will not see any major disruptions of your cell phones or your Wi-Fi or your GPS units. And also we have that coronal hole in the equatorial region waiting to give us some high-speed solar wind, but that will probably not happen until the beginning of next week. So outside of that, your space weather forecast looks pretty good. I'm Tamitha Scove. Thank you for watching.